welcome to Fathom in Person. My name's Laura and this is Jo, and we're both from Fathom Consulting and we work on Team China. And today we're going to talk to you about our RiCArdo database, and what that covers is whether China has made any progress in the Made in China industries. Hi Jo.
Hi Laura.
So since 2001, when China joined the World Trade Organization, its share in the global manufacturing export market has soared to around 20%. That's bid down the global price of manufacturing goods, which is great for consumers, but not so much the foreign producers of those goods. So the concern now is that it's going to replicate that model into these new made in China industries. So how have you tackled whether that's actually happening?
So I suppose the first thing to say really is we were surprised to discover that there weren't very many existing or reliable existing measures of this available.
Okay.
It's something there's been a lot of fanfare around, both in China, it's pushed into these high-tech industries, and also overseas. So obviously it's an area that Donald Trump has pushed back against.
Yeah.
And despite that, all we could find really was the China's National Bureau of Statistics measure, which was, as usual, dubiously high. And when we looked into it, it seemed to be covering sort of sectors that weren't necessarily classified as high-tech.
Okay.
And the World Bank's measure was worryingly similar to China's measure. So on the back of that, that's how we realised that really we needed to get at this for ourselves.
So a true reflection of what's actually going on. So how did you tackle that if the data wasn't available? What sources have you used?
So the route we've gone down is we've now got detailed goods export data for over 2,000 different industries, for over 200 different countries and regions.
Right.
We've whittled that down to around 200 that we think pertain to China's Made in China 2025 plan.
So the 4-digit and the 6 digits you use for the robots. So
Yeah.
significant amount of detail.
Incredibly detailed.
Okay, and what kind of time span is that? What variables have you got in the dashboard? Easy to use dashboard, looks very simple for different clients, different uses.
Yeah, so we've tried to make it as user friendly as possible, putting it into a dashboard, quite simple to follow through, and not just the raw data. What we've done is we've applied various different calculations to help interpret all of the wealth of information that we have.
Okay.
So we've got things like market share, so China's high-tech exports as a share of global trade in those different sectors.
Yeah.
And we've also got something called revealed comparative advantage, hence the name of the database being called RiCArdo, RCA.
Yeah.
And that gives you a way to assess whether China specialises relative to elsewhere in that sector as well.
Okay, and then the database covers not just China, but how many countries have you?
So we've got over 200 countries and regions.
Okay, and what have you found? So is Xi correct in saying that it's made progress in these value-added?
Well, so the beauty of having the database on a time series basis, so from 2001 to 2017, is that we can monitor China's progress.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say that China did succeed at first. His drive into these high-tech industries meant that China's exports of those goods as a proportion of its total exports did indeed increase.
Yeah.
But more recently we've seen progress stall, and over the last year it's actually fallen, and it's unwound the past decade's worth of expansion in those sectors.
Okay, so another reform which Xi is saying is working, but actually when we have the data, it's not to be true.
Yeah, it's not been as successful as hoped.
So that's similar to our central story, so doubling down. So the progress in the internationalisation of renminbi has stalled. It's progress into rebalancing, good rebalancing towards the consumer. It's now focusing on the investment and export-led growth again.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned that Trump was concerned about this development. So is he right to be concerned if the progress has stalled?
That's a good point. I certainly think Trump has a point. If you look from the beginning of our database of 2001 to 2017, you can see that China has managed to grab market share in all of the sectors, whereas the US has actually lost market share in all but one over that time period.
Okay, and then any other US-China evidence that you've looked at?
Yeah, so referring again to the RCA, so the specialism, what we discovered is that even though the US actually specialises in more industries than China tends to, despite being better, more competitive in those fields, it actually had a small net deficit in trade with China, whereas we all know that what China specialises in, it has a vast trade surplus with the US.
Okay.
So the example of where the US holds a comparative advantage but is losing out is transport equipment, for example.
Okay, so again, a non-reciprocal relationship between them. So in terms of the global market share analysis that you did, so China now holds the top spot for IT, new materials, new energy and advanced railway. So that's why Trump will be concerned in that respect.
Yeah, problematically and frustratingly, I'm sure, for Donald Trump,
Yeah.
targeting China's made in China industries only actually accounts for a very small amount of the large trade deficit that the US holds with China.
So it won't actually make a difference, and since the tariff has actually increased the deficit anyway between the two of them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you'd like any more information on our RiCArdo database or the notes which Joe's written on China's progress in the made in China industries, then please just contact us. Thank you.
Thanks.